At the baby shower, my daughter-in-law called me self-centered and said, "She only brought a gift to get attention." When they opened the envelope, it was the contract for a fully paid layette until the child turned 3. "Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached." I never thought a baby shower would be the place where my heart would shatter into a million pieces. But there I was, standing in my daughter-in-law Lauren's lavishly decorated living room, surrounded by pink and blue balloons, elegant flower arrangements, and women whose whispers fell silent the moment I walked in. At 65, I'd been looking forward to becoming a grandmother for years. I'd saved for this moment, planned for it, dreamed about the little one who would call me Grandma Nancy. When David, my only son, told me that Lauren was pregnant, I cried tears of joy. Finally, a new chapter in our family story was about to begin. "Mom, Lauren's having a baby shower next Saturday," David had told me over the phone, his voice oddly hesitant. "She said you're welcome to come." Welcome. Such a strange word choice. Shouldn't I have been expected? I pushed the thought aside, determined to make this a special occasion. I arrived at the party carrying a simple white envelope, dressed in my best navy blue dress, my silver hair freshly styled. Lauren's mother greeted me with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nancy, how nice of you to make it," she said, taking my coat. Her gaze dropped to the small envelope in my hands, and I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Everyone else had brought large, elaborately wrapped gifts. I found a seat in the corner of the room, watching as Lauren opened present after present. Designer baby clothes, a stroller that probably cost more than my first car, a handcrafted crib. Each gift was met with squeals of delight and enthusiastic thank yous from Lauren, who hadn't even acknowledged my presence since I arrived. Finally, when the pile of gifts had dwindled, someone pointed to my envelope. "There's one more, Lauren," said a voice I didn't recognize. Lauren's eyes met mine for the first time that afternoon. "Oh right. Nancy brought something." She took the envelope, her red-painted nails a stark contrast against the white paper. "Probably just a card," she added with a laugh that several others echoed. I felt my chest tighten as she tore open the envelope carelessly. Inside was no ordinary card, but rather a legally binding contract I'd spent weeks arranging. Before she could pull it out, Lauren looked up at the room full of expectant faces. "See, this is what I was talking about," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room. She brought a present just to make an appearance. Always so self-centered. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face grow hot, my hands beginning to tremble in my lap. "Lauren!" someone gasped, perhaps realizing I could hear every word. But Lauren wasn't finished. Everything has to be about her. She couldn't just buy something from the registry like a normal grandmother. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and vanish. The room had gone completely quiet, all eyes shifting uncomfortably between Lauren and me. With trembling hands, Lauren finally pulled out the contents of the envelope. Her expression shifted from contempt to confusion as she read the document. "What's this?" she asked, looking up. I found my voice somehow, though it came out softer than I intended. "It's a contract. I've arranged and paid for a full set of baby essentials until the age of 3. Everything from diapers to clothes, toys, formula if you need it. The store will deliver monthly packages, and you can exchange anything that doesn't work for you." The silence in the room deepened. Someone cleared their throat. Lauren's mother peered over her shoulder at the document, her eyes widening. That's quite generous, Nancy," one of the older women finally said. Lauren's face had turned an unbecoming shade of red. She set the contract down carefully, as if it might bite her. "Well," she said after a moment, her voice strained. "Thank you." No warmth. No apology for her earlier words. Just a cold, obligatory acknowledgement. I stood up slowly, my knees weak beneath me. "I should be going," I said to no one in particular. "I have a thing I need to get to." No one tried to stop me. Not Lauren's mother. Not the friends who'd known me for years. And certainly not Lauren, who had already moved on to serving cake. The contract pushed aside like an afterthought. As I collected my coat, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. There were no tears in my eyes, not yet. Just a hollowness I didn't recognize. "Nancy, are you leaving already?" It was David, arriving late from work, still in his business suit. I couldn't bear to tell him what had happened. Couldn't bear to put him in the middle. "Just feeling a bit tired, sweetheart," I managed to say. "Call me tomorrow." He frowned, looking past me to the living room full of guests. "Is everything okay?" I patted his cheek, the way I used to when he was small and needed reassurance. "Everything's fine. Go be with your wife. She's waiting for you." As I drove home in silence, the tears finally came. Not delicate, dignified tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that made it hard to see the road. I had to pull over twice just to catch my breath. All these years, I'd told myself that Lauren's coldness toward me was just her personality, or that she needed time to warm up. But today had confirmed my worst fears. In her eyes, I wasn't family. I was an intruder, an inconvenience, someone to be tolerated at best. And my son had allowed it to happen. The house was quiet when I returned home. Too quiet. I hung my coat in the closet and kicked off my shoes, not bothering to place them neatly on the rack as I usually did. What was the point of maintaining order when my entire world had just collapsed? I sank into my favorite armchair, the one James and I had bought together 30 years ago. It still held the indent of his body on the left side, even though he'd been gone for almost 11 years now. Cancer took him when David was just 14, leaving me to raise our son alone. "Oh, James," I whispered to the empty room. "You would have known what to say to her. You always knew how to handle difficult people." I reached for the photo album on the side table, the one I'd been planning to give to my grandchild someday. Page after page of David's childhood, carefully preserved. His first steps, first day of school, baseball games, graduations. So many moments where it had been just the two of us against the world. After James died, I'd taken on extra shifts at the hospital where I worked as a nurse to ensure David could stay in the same school, keep the same friends, have some stability despite our loss. Those years were exhausting. Working 60-hour weeks, helping with homework, attending school events, trying to be both mother and father to a grieving teenager. I paused at a photo of David's high school graduation. His face beaming with pride as he held his diploma, my arm around his shoulders. We'd made it through those difficult years together, closer than ever. Or so I thought. What had changed? When had I become someone he allowed to be humiliated? The phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. David's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Mom." His voice sounded strained. "Is everything okay? You left so suddenly." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just tired. Lauren said she might have offended you somehow. She feels terrible about it." I closed my eyes, pressing fingers against my temple where a headache was forming. Lauren feeling terrible. That was a performance for David's benefit, nothing more. "It's nothing," I lied. "Just a misunderstanding." "You sure?" "Because I'm sure, David." "How was the rest of the shower?" He paused, perhaps sensing I was changing the subject. "It was good. Lauren got everything we needed. Your gift was..." "It was incredibly generous, Mom." "Thank you." "You're welcome." I wanted to do something special. An awkward silence stretched between us. Then David cleared his throat. "Listen, Mom, Lauren and I were talking, and we think it might be best if you give us some space for the next few weeks. With the baby coming, things are stressful and..." "Space," I repeated, the word feeling like a knife in my chest. "Just for a little while. Lauren needs to rest, doctor's orders. We'll call you when things settle down." I gripped the phone tighter, trying to keep my voice steady. "Course. I understand." But I didn't understand. Not really. The baby wasn't due for another month. What, doctor's orders, required cutting off contact with a grandmother. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Give them space. Translation, stay away. Lauren had won this round easily, turning my own son against me with what was surely a fabricated excuse. The tears came again, but this time they were accompanied by something else, anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but a cold, simmering rage that spread slowly through my veins. I had given everything for my son. Everything. Worked myself to exhaustion, sacrificed my own dreams and needs, loved him unconditionally. And this was how he repaid me. I forced myself up from the chair and walked to the window, staring out at the maple tree James had planted when we first bought this house. Its leaves were starting to turn golden with the approach of fall. How many seasons had I watched from this same spot? How many changes had I weathered alone? My mind drifted back to the day David introduced me to Lauren 3 years ago. She'd been polite but distant, her smiles never quite reaching her eyes. I tried so hard with her, inviting them for dinner, offering help with wedding preparations, always remembering her birthday with a thoughtful gift. Nothing extravagant, as I lived on a fixed income, but always personal. In return, she'd maintained a calculated distance, canceling plans at the last minute, making subtle comments about my home being quaint and old-fashioned, correcting my opinions at family gatherings. I'd swallowed my pride each time, telling myself that what mattered was staying in David's life. But today something had shifted. The public humiliation, followed by David's call asking me to stay away. It was a pattern I could no longer ignore. Lauren wasn't just indifferent to me. She was actively working to exclude me from their lives. And soon, from my grandchild's life. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Ruth, my oldest friend, who had been at the shower. Nancy, are you okay? What Lauren said was terrible. Call me. I set the phone down without responding. I couldn't talk about it yet. Couldn't find the words to describe the hollowness spreading through me. Instead, I walked slowly to the small bedroom at the end of the hall, the one I'd been quietly preparing for my grandchild's visits. Pale yellow walls, a second-hand crib I'd repainted, a rocking chair by the window. Books I'd saved from David's childhood lined a small shelf. In the closet hung several outfits I'd purchased over the months, imagining a future filled with overnight stays and weekend visits. A future that now seemed increasingly unlikely. I sat in the rocking chair, running my fingers over the soft blanket I'd knitted during long evenings alone. Each stitch represented a hope, a dream of being part of my grandchild's life. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. When I opened the door, Ruth stood on my porch, concern etched into her kind face. I knew you wouldn't call, she said simply. So I brought wine and chocolate instead. For the first time that day, I felt the smallest hint of relief. Ruth had been my friend since before James died. Had seen me through the darkest days of my life. If anyone could help me make sense of this situation, it was her. She's turning him against me, Ruth, I whispered as we sat at my kitchen table. I don't know what to do. Ruth reached across the table and squeezed my hand. First we drink. Then we figure it out. You're not alone in this, Nancy. Not by a long shot. 3 months passed in a fog of silence. 3 long months during which my first grandchild came into the world, and I wasn't there to witness it. I learned about Jeremy James Williams' birth through a group text message sent to what appeared to be everyone David and Lauren knew. 8 pounds, 7 ounces, mother and baby doing well. Attached was a distant photo of a tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. No invitation to visit. No personal call. I sent flowers to the hospital with a card expressing my love and excitement to meet my grandson. Later that day, I received a brief text from David. Thanks for the flowers. We're pretty overwhelmed right now. We'll reach out when things settle down. That was 6 weeks ago. Have you tried calling him again? Ruth asked as we walked through the park, fallen leaves crunching beneath our feet. I shook my head. What's the point? They've made it clear they don't want me around. Ruth stopped walking and turned to face me. Nancy Williams, I've known you for 30 years, and I've never seen you give up on anything. Especially not your son. I'm not giving up, I protested. I'm respecting their wishes. Their wishes. Or Lauren's wishes. I didn't answer. We both knew the truth. Every day, I checked Lauren's social media accounts, torturing myself with glimpses of the life I wasn't allowed to be part of. Photos of Jeremy with Lauren's parents, who apparently visited weekly. Pictures of friends holding my grandson, cooing over him, bringing gifts. Everyone except me. Last week, there had been a photo that broke me completely. 4 generations of Lauren's family gathered around the baby. Her mother, her grandmother, Lauren herself, and little Jeremy. The caption read, 4 generations of love. So blessed to have such amazing family support. I had cried myself to sleep that night. Have you considered just showing up? Ruth suggested as we resumed our walk. And risk having the door slammed in my face. No thank you. Nancy. I sent another gift last week, I interrupted. A silver rattle. It was returned to me yesterday with a note saying they already had one. Ruth's expression hardened. That's deliberate cruelty. Maybe they really do have one. Then they could have kept it anyway. Or exchanged it. Who returns a gift from a grandmother? Ruth shook her head in disgust. This isn't about rattles or space or being overwhelmed with a new baby. This is about Lauren systematically pushing you out of their lives. Deep down I knew Ruth was right. But acknowledging the truth meant facing the possibility that I might never have a relationship with my grandson. That Lauren's campaign to exclude me might actually succeed. We reached the small cafe where we often ended our walks and settled at our usual table by the window. As Ruth went to order our coffees, I noticed a young mother at the next table, gently rocking a stroller while chatting with an older woman who was clearly her mother. They were laughing together, leaning in close, sharing the special bond that often forms between new mothers and their own mothers. A bond Lauren had denied me. Earth to Nancy, Ruth said, setting a steaming mug in front of me. Where did you go just now? I nodded toward the mother and daughter. Just wondering what it's like to be wanted. Ruth's face softened. Oh, honey. Do you know what today is? I asked, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. Thursday. It's been exactly 30 years since I took David home from the hospital. I felt my throat tighten with emotion. James took this picture of me holding him in the rocking chair. I was so terrified, so overwhelmed, but so in love. I pulled out my phone and showed Ruth the photo I'd been looking at all morning. A much younger version of myself, exhausted but radiant, cradling my newborn son. He was such a good baby, I continued. So calm, so content. Even after James died, when everything was chaos and grief, David was my anchor, my reason to keep going. He loves you, Nancy, Ruth said gently. Whatever is happening now, that hasn't changed. Hasn't it? He hasn't returned my calls in weeks. The one time I suggested dropping by with a home-cooked meal, he told me they were too busy for visitors. As if I'm just some random acquaintance. I stared out the window, watching as red and gold leaves swirled across the sidewalk. Sometimes I think about just showing up at their door, demanding to see my grandson, making a scene if I have to. But you won't. No, I sighed. I won't. Because I still hope that somehow, someday, David will remember who was there for every skinned knee, every school play, every heartbreak. Who worked double shifts to send him to college without debt. Who never, ever put herself before him. Ruth reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I have an idea. Something that might help you feel a little less powerless. I'm listening. Marjorie's daughter works at that fancy baby boutique downtown, the one where all the wealthy mothers shop. She mentioned they're looking for part-time help, someone with maturity and patience to assist new grandmothers who are shopping for their grandchildren. I frowned. You want me to get a job? I want you to surround yourself with joy instead of sitting at home scrolling through Lauren's Instagram. I want you to share your knowledge and experience with people who will appreciate it. And yes, maybe make a little extra money that you can save for Jeremy's future. I considered Ruth's suggestion. The idea of helping other grandmothers select gifts for grandchildren they were allowed to see felt like it might be rubbing salt in my wounds. But the alternative, continuing this pattern of rejection and isolation, was slowly destroying me. "I'll think about it," I promised. As we finished our coffee, my phone buzzed with a text message. My heart leaped when I saw it was from David. "Mom, can you not send any more packages? Lauren is particular about Jeremy's things and wants to select everything herself. Thanks for understanding." Understanding. I didn't understand anything anymore. Especially not how my son had become someone who would send such a cold, dismissive message to his own mother. Ruth must have seen the shock on my face. "What is it? What's wrong?" I handed her my phone, unable to speak through the lump in my throat. "That tears it," Ruth said after reading the message, her voice tight with anger. "Nancy, something isn't right here. This isn't just a busy new mom being overwhelmed. This is deliberate exclusion, and David is allowing it." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, a constant ache in my chest. But now there was something else too. A spark of determination. "You're right," I said softly. "And I'm done being a doormat." I took Ruth's advice and applied for the position at Tiny Treasures, the upscale baby boutique downtown. To my surprise, I was hired immediately. Margaret, the owner, seemed delighted to have someone with grandmother wisdom, as she put it. Working surrounded by baby clothes, toys, and expectant grandparents was bittersweet. Each time I helped a woman select a gift for her grandchild, I felt both joy in their excitement and a stab of pain knowing I wasn't able to do the same. But the job got me out of the house, gave me purpose, and most importantly, gave me less time to dwell on my own situation. I was arranging a display of organic cotton onesies when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, prepared to greet another customer, and froze. Eliza. I couldn't believe my eyes. Eliza Martin had been David's high school girlfriend. They'd dated for nearly 3 years before going their separate ways for college. "Mrs. Williams. Oh my gosh, is that you?" Her face lit up with genuine pleasure as she crossed the store to hug me. "I had no idea you worked here." "It's a recent development," I said, returning her embrace. "How are you, sweetheart?" "It's been 10 years?" "At least," she agreed. "I moved back to town last year after my divorce. I'm actually here shopping for my niece's baby shower." We spent a few minutes catching up as I helped her select a gift. Eliza was now an elementary school teacher, living in an apartment not far from my neighborhood. She looked wonderful. Her warm brown eyes still crinkled when she smiled, though there were a few new laugh lines framing them. "I heard David had a baby," she said as I wrapped her purchase in tissue paper. "Congratulations on becoming a grandmother." The words stabbed at my heart. "Thank you," I managed, focusing intently on folding the paper just so. Something in my tone must have given me away. Eliza's expression softened with concern. "Nancy, is everything okay?" I rarely discussed my situation with customers, but Eliza wasn't just any customer. She had been like family once, spending countless evenings at our dinner table, joining us for movie nights and holiday celebrations. She had been there during some of our darkest days after James died. "I haven't actually met my grandson yet," I admitted quietly. "David and his wife Lauren. They've been keeping their distance." Eliza's eyes widened. "That doesn't sound like David at all. You two were always so close. Things change, I suppose." She hesitated, then asked, "Have you met Lauren? What's she like?" I chose my words carefully. "She's very particular about things. Organized. Career-focused. Controlling," Eliza suggested, raising an eyebrow. I didn't confirm or deny it, but my silence spoke volumes. "That explains it," she murmured, almost to herself. "Explains what?" Eliza glanced around the store, which was otherwise empty on this slow Tuesday morning. "I ran into David about 6 months ago, before the baby was born. We grabbed coffee to catch up. He seemed different. When I asked about you, he changed the subject immediately. I thought it was strange but didn't want to pry. A chill ran down my spine. Did he say anything else? She hesitated. He mentioned something about how Lauren had opened his eyes to certain aspects of his childhood, that she'd helped him realize some patterns of behavior. Eliza shook her head. It sounded rehearsed, to be honest. Not like him at all. My hands trembled as I finished wrapping her gift. Patterns of behavior. What was Lauren telling my son about his own childhood? Mrs. Williams, Nancy, Eliza said, leaning closer. I know it's not my place, but whatever she's told him, it's not true. I spent practically half my teenage years in your home. You were the most loving, supportive mother I've ever known. David used to talk about how lucky he was, especially after his dad died. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you for saying that. It's just the truth. She took her package and then, after a moment's hesitation, pulled out her phone. Let me give you my number. If you ever want to talk or just have coffee. I entered her number into my contacts, touched by the gesture. As she turned to leave, a thought struck me. Eliza, wait. Would you happen to have any photos from when you and David were dating? Especially from the time right after James died. She considered this. I probably do, in some old albums at my mom's house. Why? Just wondering, I said, trying to sound casual. Feeling nostalgic, I guess. But the seed of an idea had been planted. If Lauren was rewriting history, perhaps the truth could be found in the past. After Eliza left, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Lauren had opened David's eyes to patterns of behavior from his childhood. What could that possibly mean? I spent the rest of my shift distracted, my mind racing with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. By the time I locked up the store that evening, I had made a decision. I needed to know exactly what Lauren was saying about me. The next day was my day off. I spent the morning pulling boxes from the attic. Photo albums, David's school records, birthday cards he'd made for me, everything that documented our life together. I spread them across the dining room table, creating a timeline of our history. The evidence of a happy, loving relationship was overwhelming. There were photos of David laughing as we built sandcastles at the beach. His proud smile as he held up a model rocket we'd constructed together. Countless Christmas mornings and birthday celebrations. Award certificates I'd framed from his academic achievements. The cards he'd given me. To the best mom in the world, scrawled in childish handwriting. Wherein all of this was the supposed dysfunction Lauren had opened his eyes to. I was so absorbed in my research that I almost missed the doorbell. When I opened the door, Ruth stood there with 2 takeout coffees and a paper bag that smelled like cinnamon. Thought you might need sustenance, she said, brushing past me into the house. She stopped short when she saw the dining room. Good Lord, Nancy. What is all this? Evidence, I said, taking the coffee she offered. I met David's ex-girlfriend Eliza yesterday. She told me something disturbing. I recounted my conversation with Eliza while Ruth examined the photos and mementos spread across the table. So you think Lauren is telling David lies about his childhood? Ruth asked, frowning. I don't know what she's telling him. But something isn't right. I picked up a photo of David at his college graduation. His arm around my shoulders. Why would he suddenly decide I was a bad mother after 30 years of evidence to the contrary? Ruth took a thoughtful bite of her pastry. Have you considered calling Eliza again? Maybe she knows more than she let on. I thought about it, I admitted. But I don't want to put her in an awkward position. Ruth's eyes narrowed as she studied a framed newspaper clipping. David receiving a community service award in high school. No, you need to talk to her. This is your grandson's future we're talking about. If Lauren is deliberately poisoning David against you. My phone rang, interrupting whatever Ruth was about to say. My heart lurched when I saw the caller ID. David. It's him, I whispered, showing Ruth the screen. Answer it, she urged. With trembling fingers I accepted the call. David, Hi, sweetie. Mom. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Of course, I said, trying to keep my own voice steady. Is everything okay? How's Jeremy? Jeremy's fine. Mom, did you talk to Eliza Martin about Lauren and me? The accusation in his tone made my blood run cold. I glanced at Ruth, whose eyes had widened in alarm. I ran into her at the store where I'm working now, I said carefully. We chatted briefly. And you told her Lauren is controlling and keeping you away from your grandson? No. That's not what I said at all. Protested. Really? Because Lauren just got a very concerned call from her cousin, who happens to be friends with Eliza's sister. Apparently, there's a rumor going around that Lauren is some kind of manipulative monster who's destroyed our relationship. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. David, I would never say something like that. Eliza asked how things were, and I simply mentioned I hadn't met Jeremy yet. Which was an intentional guilt trip, he snapped. God, Mom, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The passive-aggressive comments, the victim mentality, the need to make everything about you. His words felt like physical blows. David, please. No. I'm done, Mom. Lauren was right about you all along. I just didn't want to see it. His voice hardened. Stay away from us. I mean it. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, unable to process what had just happened. Ruth rushed to my side, her face etched with concern. Nancy. What did he say? But I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The room seemed to spin around me as 30 years of love and sacrifice collapsed into dust. He thinks He said Lauren was right about me. I finally managed, my voice barely audible. Ruth took the phone from my shaking hands. Right about what? Nancy, what did he say? I looked up at her, the full horror of the situation finally dawning on me. She's turned him against me completely, and I have no idea how to fight back. The next few days passed in a blur of hurt and confusion. I called in sick to work, unable to face customers with their joyful grandmother stories. Barely ate, barely slept. The weight of David's accusations pressed down on me like a physical burden. Ruth came by daily, bringing food I couldn't eat and reassurances I couldn't believe. Even Eliza called to apologize, distraught that her innocent conversation with her sister had somehow gotten back to Lauren and created such chaos. I never said anything negative about her, Eliza insisted. I just mentioned I'd seen you and you seemed sad about not meeting your grandson yet. It's not your fault, I assured her, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Lauren would have found another reason to cut me off completely. On the 5th day of my self-imposed isolation, Ruth arrived with more than just food. She carried a determined expression and a thick envelope. Enough wallowing, she announced, pulling open my curtains to let sunlight stream into the living room. We need a plan. I looked up from my spot on the couch, where I'd been staring at the same page of a book for hours. A plan for what? To fight back. She sat beside me, setting the envelope on the coffee table. Nancy, I've been thinking about everything you've told me, and something isn't adding up. Lauren's behavior goes beyond normal mother-in-law tension. This is calculated. What difference does it make? David believes her, not me. Because she's got him isolated. That's what manipulators do. They cut their victims off from support systems. Ruth leaned forward, her eyes intense. Think about it. How often does David see his old friends? His colleagues from work? You mentioned he used to play basketball with a group of guys every Thursday night. Is he still doing that? I frowned, considering this. I don't think so. He mentioned a few months ago that he was too busy with the baby coming. And what about his career? David was so proud of being considered for that promotion last year. Did he get it? No, I said slowly, memories surfacing. He told me Lauren thought the new position would require too much travel, so he withdrew his name from consideration. Ruth nodded grimly. Classic isolation tactics. And now she's cut you out completely. His strongest support system. But why? What does she gain from alienating me? Control, Ruth said simply. If you're out of the picture, there's no one to question her decisions or influence David. No competition for Jeremy's affection. Sounded extreme, paranoid even. But as I thought about Lauren's behavior over the past 3 years, the subtle digs, the cancelled plans, the way she'd always managed to create distance between David and me, a pattern emerged that I couldn't unsee. What's in the envelope? I asked, nodding toward the table. Ruth hesitated. I did something you might not approve of. I asked my son to look into Lauren's background. You what? I straightened up, shocked. Ruth, that's necessary, she cut in firmly. Mark is a private investigator, Nancy. This is what he does. And what he found is concerning. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and spread its contents across the coffee table. There were printouts of social media posts, court records, and several typed pages of notes. Lauren Campbell isn't who she pretends to be, Ruth explained as I scanned the documents. Before she met David, she was engaged to a man named Thomas Garrett. His family was wealthy, well-connected. Sound familiar? I nodded, my throat dry. David's career as an architect had been taking off when he met Lauren. His firm had just landed several high-profile projects. He wasn't wealthy yet, but he was on his way. Thomas broke off their engagement quite suddenly, Ruth continued. Mark couldn't find the exact reason, but he did find this. She handed me a printout of a private Facebook post from Thomas to a friend. Dodged a bullet. It read, Mom finally showed me the truth about Elle. Can't believe I almost married someone so manipulative. My heart pounded as I read further through Mark's findings. After Thomas, there had been another man briefly. Another professional with promising career prospects. That relationship had ended abruptly too. And here's the most disturbing part, Ruth said, pointing to a court document. Lauren has an older sister in Kansas City. They're estranged. The sister filed for a restraining order against Lauren 3 years ago, claiming harassment and threats. This can't be right, I whispered, though the evidence before me was hard to dismiss. David would have known something. Would he? Lauren is obviously skilled at presenting herself in the best possible light. And if she systematically isolated him from everyone who knew him before? I leaned back against the couch, my mind racing. If even half of this was true, my son was in a relationship with someone potentially dangerous. Not just to me but to him and possibly even to Jeremy. What do I do with this information? I asked, feeling overwhelmed. I can't just show up at their door with these accusations. David would never believe me. He already thinks I'm trying to sabotage his marriage. Ruth was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, You need to reach him without confronting him directly. Remind him of who you really are, who you've always been to him. Not with words, but with evidence he can't deny. I glanced at the dining room, where my timeline of photos and mementos still covered the table. You mean like the photos? Something like that, but more. Ruth's eyes suddenly lit up. Nancy, does David still have that box of his father's things? The one you gave him after James died? As far as I know, it was very important to him. The box contained James's watch, his favorite books, the letters he'd written to David before he died, knowing he wouldn't live to see his son grow up. Why? Because there might be something in there that Lauren doesn't know about. Something that could cut through whatever lies she's told. Thought about it. The box had been sacred to David. He'd kept it in his closet, taking it out sometimes on difficult days or milestones when he especially missed his father. Had he shown it to Lauren? Somehow I doubted it. That box represented a connection to his past, to his father, to me. All the things Lauren seemed determined to erase. I don't have access to that box, I pointed out. It's in their home. But you know exactly what's in it, Ruth countered. You could recreate it. Not the physical items but their meaning, their message. An idea began to form in my mind. Not a confrontation, not an accusation, but a letter. A letter filled with truth and love and evidence that couldn't be denied or twisted. A letter that just might break through whatever spell Lauren had cast. "I need to think about this," I said, gathering the papers back into the envelope. "If I do this wrong, I could lose David forever." Ruth squeezed my hand. "You've already lost him, Nancy. What you're fighting for now is the chance to get him back." That night, I sat at my desk for hours, surrounded by photos and memories. I wrote and rewrote, struggling to find words that couldn't be misinterpreted, that couldn't be used against me. By dawn, I had a letter that spoke the truth without accusation, that shared memories without manipulation. Whether it would be enough to reach my son, I didn't know. But it was all I had left. I decided against mailing the letter. Lauren might intercept it, and I couldn't risk her destroying it before David had a chance to read it. Instead, I would deliver it personally. Not to their home where I might be turned away, but to David's office. Ruth offered to drive me downtown, but this was something I needed to do alone. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing a simple blue dress that James had always loved. I placed the letter in a large manila envelope, along with a small photo album I'd created, a carefully curated collection of images that told our story without words. David's architectural firm occupied 3 floors of a sleek glass building downtown. I'd only visited once, shortly after he was hired, when he'd proudly given me a tour. Now, I felt like an intruder as I approached the reception desk. "I'd like to leave this for David Williams," I told the young receptionist, whose name tag read Sophia. She glanced at the envelope. "Is he expecting it?" "No, but it's important. I'm his mother," I added, hoping that might help. Sophia's expression softened. "Oh, you're David's mom. He has that photo of you two on his desk, the one from his college graduation." My heart skipped a beat. He still displayed our photo. "Yes, that's right. He's in a meeting right now, but I can make sure he gets this as soon as he's free." She took the envelope carefully. "Should I tell him you stopped by?" I hesitated. "No, that's not necessary. The letter explains everything." As I turned to leave, Sophia called after me. "Mrs. Williams, he's been looking kind of stressed lately. It might cheer him up to see you." I gave her a sad smile. "I hope so, dear. I really hope so." Outside, I sat on a bench across from David's building, watching the entrance. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Certainly not for David to come rushing out after reading my letter. The meeting Sophia mentioned could last hours. But I couldn't make myself leave, not yet. Almost an hour passed before I saw a familiar figure exit the building. David, looking tired but handsome in his charcoal suit, stepped onto the sidewalk while checking his phone. For a moment I thought about calling out to him, but something held me back. This wasn't the place for a confrontation. The letter needed to reach him first. He didn't look up, didn't see me sitting just across the street. After a moment, he hailed a taxi and disappeared into the flow of traffic. I remained on the bench, wondering if I'd just made a terrible mistake. What if the letter pushed him further away? What if Lauren convinced him it was just another attempt to manipulate him? But it was done now. All I could do was wait. 3 days passed with no word from David. I returned to work, going through the motions of helping customers, arranging displays, all while carrying the weight of uncertainty. Had he read the letter? Had he even received it? On the 4th day, as I was closing the shop, my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart raced as I answered. "Mrs. Williams. This is Sophia from Carlson and Hayes Architecture. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the envelope you left." "No, of course not," I said quickly. "Is everything all right? I thought you should know. Mr. Williams has been out sick for the past 2 days. But before he left, he asked me to keep something safe for him. The envelope you brought." He opened it at his desk, and I couldn't help noticing he was very emotional afterwards. My grip tightened on the phone. Did he say anything? Not to me directly. But I overheard him on the phone with someone, I think his wife. He sounded upset, saying something about all these years, and how could you lie about this? I'm probably overstepping by telling you this, but he's always been kind to me, and he seemed so distraught. Thank you, Sophia, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I appreciate you letting me know. After we hung up, I sat in my car trying to process what this might mean. David had confronted Lauren about something in the letter. But what would happen now? Would he reach out to me, or would Lauren find a way to spin this too? I didn't have to wonder long. That evening, as I was preparing a simple dinner for one, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, David stood there, the manila envelope clutched in his hand. His eyes red-rimmed from what appeared to be hours of crying. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking on that single syllable. Without a word, I opened my arms and my son, my grown 30-year-old son, collapsed into them like a child seeking comfort after a nightmare. I guided him to the couch, where he sat hunched over, the envelope now on the coffee table between us. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. I waited, giving him the space to find his words. "I remember this," he finally said, pulling out a photo from the album I'd created. It showed the two of us at the beach, building a massive sandcastle while James took the picture. Dad called it Fort Williams. We spent hours on it. "All day," I confirmed softly. "You were so determined to make it perfect before the tide came in." David flipped through a few more pages, pausing at an image of himself at age 15, lankier than he was now, standing proudly beside a science fair project. "You took off work to help me finish this. Your boss was furious." "Some things are more important than work," I said simply. He looked up at me then, his eyes filled with confusion and pain. "Why would Lauren tell me you were never there for me? That you prioritized work over family? That you resented being a single mother?" The questions tore at my heart. "I don't know, sweetheart. I truly don't know why she would say those things. She had explanations for everything. Stories about how you'd manipulated situations, rewritten history." He shook his head in disbelief. "She even suggested you'd altered photos to make it look like you were more present than you actually were." I struggled to maintain my composure in the face of such calculated cruelty. "David, I was far from a perfect mother. There were times I was exhausted, times I was scared I was failing you. But I never, ever resented you. You were the light of my life. You still are." "I think I've made a terrible mistake," he whispered, staring down at his hands. "Lauren and we've been fighting ever since your letter arrived. She's saying things that don't make sense, accusing you of trying to destroy our marriage. When I questioned her about some of the stories she told me about you, she got scary, cold, like a different person." A chill ran down my spine. "David, I need to ask you something important. Are you and Jeremy safe?" He looked startled by the question. "What? Yes, of course. Lauren would never. I mean, she has a temper, but she's never been violent. Sometimes control and manipulation can be just as harmful," I said carefully. "I wasn't going to show you this, but I think you need to see it." I retrieved Ruth's envelope from my desk drawer and handed it to him. "This isn't about getting between you and Lauren. This is about making sure you have all the facts." David's face grew increasingly pale as he reviewed the documents. When he finished, he set them aside with shaking hands. "I need to think. I need time to process all of this." "Of course," I said. "Whatever you decide, whatever you need, I'm here for you. Always." He stood to leave, then hesitated. "Jeremy has been asking for his grandma." "Well, not asking exactly. He's only 3 months old. But he stares at your picture on our mantel, the one from my wedding. Sometimes he smiles at it." Tears sprang to my eyes at this small, precious detail. "I'd very much like to meet him when you're ready." "Soon," David promised, gathering the papers and his coat. "I need to figure some things out first, but soon." At the door, he turned back to me with a look of profound regret. I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything. I know, sweetheart. I know. After he left, I sat in the quiet house, my heart both heavy and light. The truth had finally broken through. But at what cost to my son, to his family? I didn't wish pain on David, didn't want to see his marriage destroyed, even if Lauren had manipulated him. But I also knew that relationships built on lies eventually crumble under their own weight. All I could do now was be there to help pick up the pieces, whatever form they took. 2 weeks passed. David called every few days. Brief conversations that carefully avoided any mention of Lauren. He was staying with a friend, he told me. Taking some time to think. I didn't push, didn't ask questions he wasn't ready to answer. Then, on a bright Saturday morning in November, a text message arrived. Mom, would you like to meet your grandson today? Just the two of us. David, I replied immediately. Name the time and place. I'll be there. An hour later, I sat on the same park bench where James and I used to take David as a child. The maple trees had lost most of their leaves now, but the late autumn sun cast a golden glow over everything. When I saw them coming down the path, David pushing a stroller with a blue blanket visible inside, my heart seemed to expand in my chest, making it hard to breathe. After all these months of waiting, of hurt and confusion, of fighting for the truth, this moment felt almost surreal. Mom, David said as they reached me, I'd like you to meet Jeremy James Williams. Jeremy, this is your grandmother. With trembling hands, I peered into the stroller. 2 bright eyes stared back at me from a perfect little face. James's nose, David's chin, and something uniquely his own in the curious, open expression. Hello, Jeremy, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. I've been waiting so long to meet you. David carefully lifted him from the stroller and placed him in my arms. The solid weight of him, the baby smell of powder and warmth, the tiny fingers that immediately wrapped around mine. It was everything I had dreamed of. He likes you, David said, smiling as Jeremy cooed and studied my face. He's very particular about who holds him. Smart boy, I said, kissing his downy head. We're going to be great friends, aren't we? As we sat together on that bench, with Jeremy bobbing in my lap and David beside me, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be difficult conversations, painful decisions, new boundaries to establish. But sitting there, 3 generations of the Williams family together in the autumn sunlight, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The truth had won. And with it came the chance to build something new, something stronger, something that couldn't be broken by lies or manipulation. Thank you, I said softly to David. He took my hand, squeezing it gently. No, Mum. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. Jeremy gurgled happily between us, unaware of the battles fought to bring us to this moment, unaware of the tears and heartache that had preceded his arrival in my arms. All he knew was that he was safe, he was loved, and his family, his true family, was finally complete.